Richard Lett. Richard, first of all, thanks for doing this on such short notice. And sorry under these circumstances. The Queen was, you know, certainly old and the longest serving Queen ever. Yeah, 70 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you react to the news today?
Well, like you and many others, I've just found out, and it's you know, it's quite a shock having been part of the Royalty Protection Department in the United Kingdom and served for Her Majesty for many years. You know, it was an honour to serve for her. You know, and I'm like many people, I'm very deeply sad. She was just such an example to all of us. Duty, responsibility, service. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh together, you know, put their arm around the nation and the Commonwealth in triumph and tragedy for so many times. And I just think there's going to be millions of people around the world that want to join me and many others who would want at this moment to put our arms around Her Majesty and say thank you for your service. She's just been a huge example to us all. And you know, and I wish Prince Charles, who's now king, you know, all the very, very best of luck.
Yes, at the moment that she passes away, he then becomes king, but they don't make it official until tomorrow. Yeah.
Correct. So it's a continuous thing that we're never without, you know, a king or queen. Just the same way for her, when her father died, she became queen, you know, instantly, unexpectedly. And I just think, you know, when she said that she was going to serve her whole life, she's done exactly what she said she would do. And that's just a lesson for all of us. I mean, you know, I now live in America. I've been here since 2012 after the London Olympics. And it was just such a privilege to having served Her Majesty. And, you know, I love living here. I love being in America, but it does really make me, you know, reflect on many, many wonderful occasions being there to be a very small part of what the Queen did for our country and for many people around the world.
Sure. Can you give me a brief history or a synopsis of what you did for security for the royals?
So I joined Royalty Protection. I was a Metropolitan Police officer, what you call Scotland Yard. I joined the Royalty Protection Department in 1998. And my first assignment, I was the protection officer with Prince William and Prince Harry. So I was with them at, you know, at school, gap years, early military career. I then went on to serve for major events. So I was part of the planning and the delivery of 2 of the Queen's Jubilees, you know, and in early 2000 and 2012. So I had the opportunity to go around the country as the Queen was saying thank you to millions of people. It's quite a bizarre thing to be part of. Thousands upon thousands of people lining the streets who want to see the Queen waving flags and bunting, and what she's effectively doing with every single person is just saying thank you for your service to the country. I mean, she just made people feel wonderful, and she was just very, very grateful for every single member of the country.
And so for how many years then were you a part of Scotland Yard?
So I served for Scotland Yard for 32 years. I joined the police in 1980. I know you're trying to do the math now as you look at me, but I joined as a police cadet in 1980. And I served in you know, at Scotland Yard in East London and Central London for many years. And in 98 became a Royalty Protection Officer, what we call you know, your version of Secret Service. And got to serve with, you know, William, Harry, the Queen, and other members of the royal family in the UK and around the world. It was a wonderful thing, and actually ended up with how I met my wife on an operation in India, and that's how you meet Minnesota women in India.
Oh, now I know why you came to Minnesota. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you met your wife, who's from Minnesota in India.
My wife is from Minnesota, and so I now live in Minnesota, and I'm also an American citizen and a British citizen, and you know, but today I feel very British, and you know, my heart feels you know, for the family, for the Queen. I just think she was brokenhearted after Prince Philip. I mean, so many people, I think, misunderstood Prince Philip, who I think was just a wonderful, decent, strong man. and the Queen very much, supported him. And I think when he died, that I think I just saw some of the drive that the Queen always had, the most delightful look in her eye, like a child. It was always, her eyes would gleam and glisten, and everybody who met her, you could just see them were transfixed on just what wonderful eyes she had, and how bright they were. And I think there was certainly a dulling of that after Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed.
Understandably so. Yeah, people used to describe the Dalai Lama that way, and I met him one time in Minnesota at Mayo Clinic, and he literally had the aura that you just described, a baby-like, childlike, and it was a fascinating experience. Do you have any particular memory that you like to share about the Queen or the royal family?
Well, just to say that with all of the events where she was always on time, whether it was rain, whether it was cold. She always showed up, and she never complained. And every single thing, there was always a sense of humor as well. How she would, just sort of tease people. She had a huge sense of humor, and there was a lot of sort of teasing and stuff that sometimes people wouldn't recognize because they think it's the Queen. But she had a lot of fun, and she was very easy to work with because she just came and she did her job. So certainly for the Jubilees, as we would go around in cars and planes and trains, and day after day after day, another event in another city, and she just got on with it. It's just a lesson to all of us today about duty, service, and responsibility.
Do you have any like personal stories? I know there was that picture of her, and I don't know if that was some sort of coronation or some sort of honor she was giving you.
Well, so I was very honoured to be made a member of the Royal Victorian Order, the Queen's personal gift, and I think for my service with members of the royal family, and also supporting her jubilees, and I did the sort of led security for most of the royal weddings from '98 through 2012. So that was Charles and Camilla's, William and Kate's, Edward and Sophie's, and other people's weddings. So I was a bit of a wedding planner for that. So I think that for many, I think the Queen was grateful having for someone helping around with the royal weddings. But I got the opportunity to take my new mother and father-in-law to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen for a cup of tea. So I'd say that was a real highlight, to take my new American wife to Buckingham Palace. And she took, my wife was part of the Big Sisters program, and she took her little sister, from Northeast Minneapolis to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen. It was just an amazing occasion for everybody and the Queen was just wonderful to organize that to when we would be in the country.
Yeah, what a great story. I just read that there hasn't been a burial or even like a royal funeral at Westminster Abbey since the 18th century. Do you happen to know why that is, or?
Well, I think so. Westminster Abbey and St Paul's. So there are the different. The two are the two sort of key locations where the ceremonies would take place. But what I can tell you is that every member of the royal family has a very deep engagement with their own funeral plans. So for many years there are meetings, and the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh are very explicit about what they want and how they want things to be. So what you'll see in the funeral service, what you'll see is very much the reflection of the sort of service and how she would have wanted it. So this isn't something that now is pulled off the shelf by other people. This is something that has the Queen's signature all the way through. Every element of her funeral service will be something that she has discussed and agreed to with the palace and the government.
That is an interesting fact. I didn't know that. It's important. Anything else you want to add, Richard?
Only just to say, it was just an honor to serve. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman, as well as person, as well as our Queen, and I just would want to wish Prince Charles and all the rest of the family the very, very best of wishes in this transition. I think the next few days will be tough for everybody.
I'm grateful that you spoke to us, especially under the circumstances.
Yep. Well, thank you, Chris, and and I just also appreciate just the love that many Americans have for the Queen and the royal family. So it's very, very, very evident. So thank you for that. And I know that that we'll all be watching closely as to how the funeral and how, you know, how that will go, how that plays out. So let's hope that goes really well, and it'll be exactly what the Queen wants. And I know that everyone involved will get every detail right, because she'll be watching.
Yeah, yes, she will. And it's these impeccable records and burial spaces, whether it's in Florence or it's in London at Westminster Abbey. I've been there, and the stunning history there and the collection of people that are buried there is fascinating. Yeah. Fascinating.
But I mean, to think that you know, when the Queen was the coronation, I think there was somewhere between 10 and 11,000 people packed into Westminster Abbey. You know, they built temporary stands out of wood. People come in hours and hours before, just to give you a sense as to the change. For the royal wedding, there was less than 3,000 people inside Westminster Abbey, and it was still packed. But the difference between modern health and safety and fire exits, etc., that 3,000 people is the capacity in Westminster Abbey, but for her coronation, there was over 10,000 people packed in. So her funeral would appear to be at the place where she loved very much, at Westminster Abbey, which is a wonderful, wonderful building. And I think whether you and lots of Americans have visited it, but you know, whether you look up or you look down, it's just full of stones, engravings, and memories. It's a beautiful building.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Richard.